Listen up, because what I'm about to tell you is going to shake the entire crypto community to its core. While everyone else is out there making wild predictions without any substance, throwing around numbers like confetti at a parade, I'm here to drop some uncomfortable truths that the mainstream crypto media doesn't want you to hear. You see, I've been watching this space for years now, and I'm absolutely sick and tired of the same recycled garbage being fed to retail investors day after day. Everyone's so focused on Bitcoin hitting new all-time highs, Ethereum's supposed dominance, and whatever flashy new altcoin is trending on social media this week. But here's the thing that's driving me absolutely insane. They're all missing the biggest financial opportunity of our lifetime, and it's happening right under their noses. I'm talking about XRP. And before you roll your eyes or click away because you've heard this story before, let me tell you why this time is fundamentally different. This isn't some hopium-fueled fantasy or another clickbait prediction. This is about real money, institutional money, and a supply shock that's going to make the 2021 crypto bull run look like child's play. You know what really gets under my skin? The way people dismiss XRP because of what happened in 2021. They sit there with their smug attitudes, pointing to charts and saying, look, XRP didn't do anything during the last bull run. It's a dead coin. Ripple just dumps on retail investors. And you know what? It makes my blood boil because these people have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Let me paint you a picture of what really happened in 2021. Imagine you're a world-class athlete training for the Olympics your entire life. You've got the talent, the dedication, the team behind you. Then, 3 months before the games, someone comes and breaks both your legs with a baseball bat. That's exactly what the SEC did to XRP. They didn't just file a lawsuit. They essentially kneecapped the entire project right before the biggest bull run in crypto history. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is where I start getting really excited about the future. That athlete, they didn't just recover, they came back stronger, faster, and more determined than ever before. XRP has been through hell and back, and now it's positioned for something that's going to blow everyone's minds. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, XRP is up over 400% in the last 12 months. 400%. While Bitcoin maximalists are celebrating their modest gains, XRP has been quietly outperforming almost everything in the top 100. But that's just the beginning, and frankly, it's the least exciting part of this story. Here's what's really keeping me up at night with excitement. We're witnessing something that's never happened before in the history of financial markets. We're seeing the birth of a supply shock so massive, so unprecedented, that when it hits, it's going to send shockwaves through the entire global financial system. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can XRP have a supply shock when there are 99 billion coins in circulation? This is exactly the kind of small-minded thinking that's going to keep people poor while others become generationally wealthy. Supply shocks aren't just about the total number of coins. They're about available supply versus demand. And the demand dynamics we're seeing right now are absolutely mind-blowing. Let me break this down for you in a way that's going to make your head spin. Right now, at this very moment, there are 8 major companies that have publicly announced XRP treasury strategies. Not Bitcoin treasuries, XRP treasuries. These aren't some random startups either. We're talking about serious institutional players with hundreds of millions of dollars in capital allocation strategies. Trident Digital Tech Holdings just announced a $500 million XRP treasury plan. $500 million. Vivo Power International is setting aside over $100 million specifically for XRP. Weebus International Limited is planning a $300 million XRP reserve strategy These numbers are staggering, and this is just what we know about publicly. But wait, it gets even better. There are currently 16 spot XRP ETFs waiting for approval. 16! Do you understand what this means? When these ETFs get approved, and trust me, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, we're going to see institutional money flooding into XRP like never before. Here's the part that really gets my adrenaline pumping. The DeFi ecosystem on the XRP ledger is just starting to wake up from its slumber. We're sitting at about $101 million in total value locked right now. Now, I know that might not sound like much compared to Ethereum's DeFi ecosystem, but here's the kicker. This is just the beginning. I'm predicting that within the next 18 months, we're going to see billions and eventually trillions of dollars locked up in DeFi protocols on the XRP ledger. And when that happens, when all that XRP gets locked up in liquidity pools, staking protocols, and yield farming opportunities, the available supply on exchanges is going to shrink dramatically. But DeFi is just one piece of the puzzle. The real game changer is tokenization and real-world assets. Right now, there's about $356 million in real-world assets tokenized on the XRP ledger, and it's growing by 9% every month. 9% monthly growth might not sound explosive, but when you compound that over time, we're looking at exponential growth that's going to consume massive amounts of XRP. The stablecoin market on XRP ledger is hovering around $200 million, but here's what most people don't realize. This is going to be the bridge currency for international payments, corporate treasury management, and cross-border settlements. When major corporations start using XRP-based stablecoins for their day-to-day operations, we're talking about utility demand that dwarfs anything we've seen in crypto before. Now here's where this story takes a turn that's going to make traditional finance experts' heads explode. Ripple isn't just building payment rails anymore. They're creating an entire institutional DeFi ecosystem that's going to tap into markets worth quadrillions of dollars. Quadrillions. The foreign exchange market alone trades $7.5 trillion every single day. Every day. And Ripple is positioning XRP and the XRP ledger to capture a significant portion of that market through institutional-grade DeFi protocols, cross-chain interoperability, and derivatives trading. I've been digging into Ripple's institutional DeFi portal, and let me tell you, this isn't some pie-in-the-sky project. This is a fully developed platform that's going to help financial institutions bring their businesses on-chain using XRP and the XRP ledger. We're talking about asset tokenization, XRP deposits, XRP trading, and effortless asset issuance, all ready for production deployment. But here's what's really blowing my mind. Just a few months ago, Ripple added BBVA to their custody platform. For those who don't know, BBVA is one of the largest banks in Europe, with over 700 billion euros in assets. When institutions like this start using Ripple's infrastructure, they're not just using it for custody. They're tapping into tokenization, cross-border payments, and eventually the entire XRP ecosystem. The Africa expansion with RLUSD, SBI's plans to bring RLUSD to Japan in early 2026, the EVM sidechain connecting over 80 blockchains, it's all coming together like pieces of a massive puzzle. And when this puzzle is complete, the demand for XRP is going to be so enormous that the current supply won't even matter. Here's the controversial part that's going to make XRP haters absolutely lose their minds. The whole argument about market cap limitations is completely outdated and irrelevant. We just watched Bitcoin cross a $2 trillion market cap with nowhere near the utility that XRP offers. Bitcoin is digital gold. It's a store of value. But XRP? XRP is digital infrastructure for the global financial system. When institutional DeFi scales on the XRP ledger, when real-world assets worth trillions of dollars get tokenized, When major corporations start using XRP for their treasury management and cross-border payments, we're going to see utility-driven demand that makes speculation look like pocket change. I'm not just talking about another pump and dump cycle. I'm talking about a fundamental shift in how value is created and transferred in the global economy. We are moving from a speculation-based crypto market to a utility-based crypto economy, and XRP is positioned to be the backbone of that economy. The regulatory environment is shifting in XRP's favor. The SEC lawsuit is behind us. XRP is back on every major exchange. Institutional adoption is accelerating. The technology infrastructure is ready. All the pieces are falling into place for what I believe will be the most significant wealth creation event in modern financial history. But here's what really keeps me excited about this opportunity. Most people in crypto are still fighting the last war. They're still thinking in terms of 2017 price patterns, 2021 market cycles, and outdated metrics that don't apply to what's happening now. They're looking at XRP through the lens of speculation when they should be looking at it through the lens of utility and institutional adoption. The supply shock I'm predicting isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to build slowly, then hit all at once. First, we'll see gradual increases in institutional buying, then the ETFs will get approved and trigger another wave of demand. Meanwhile, DeFi will continue growing exponentially, locking up more and more XRP. Tokenization will accelerate, corporate treasuries will diversify into XRP, and cross-border payments will scale massively. At some point, probably sooner than most people expect, these demand forces are going to converge and create a perfect storm. The available supply of XRP on exchanges will shrink dramatically while institutional demand explodes. When that happens, we're going to see price movements that defy everything. Traditional financial analysts thought they knew about crypto markets. I'm talking about XRP reaching $50, $100, maybe even higher. And I know that sounds insane to people who are still stuck in the old way of thinking about crypto valuations. But when you consider the size of the markets XRP is targeting, when you look at the institutional infrastructure being built, when you factor in the supply dynamics I've outlined, these price targets aren't just possible, they're inevitable. The biggest mistake retail investors make is focusing on short-term price movements instead of long-term utility adoption. They get excited about 10% pumps and panic about 20% dumps, completely missing the bigger picture. What's happening with XRP right now isn't about trading opportunities or quick profits. It's about positioning yourself for a generational wealth transfer that's going to reshape the global financial landscape. Corporate treasury management alone is going to drive massive demand for XRP. When companies realize they can hold XRP in their treasuries and earn yield through DeFi protocols while maintaining liquidity for international operations, it's going to trigger an avalanche of corporate adoption. We're already seeing the early signs with the companies I mentioned earlier, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. The cross-border payments market is worth trillions of dollars annually, and it's broken. Current systems are slow, expensive, and inefficient. XRP solves these problems while providing transparency, speed, and cost-effectiveness that traditional systems can't match. When major banks and corporations start using XRP for their international transfers, we're talking about utility demand that dwarfs anything we've seen in crypto before. Here's something that's going to shock people who think Ripple doesn't care about XRP. The institutional DeFi portal I mentioned earlier, it's specifically designed to onboard traditional financial institutions to the XRP ecosystem. This isn't some side project. This is Ripple's main focus for institutional adoption. They're building the infrastructure to bring trillions of dollars in traditional finance onto the XRP ledger. The tokenization of real-world assets is another massive catalyst that most people are completely overlooking. We're talking about tokenizing everything from real estate and commodities to corporate bonds and government securities. When these assets get tokenized on the XRP ledger, they'll use XRP as the settlement layer, creating constant utility demand that never existed before. Stablecoins are going to be huge for XRP adoption. RLUSD isn't just another stablecoin. It's designed specifically for enterprise use cases, cross-border payments, and DeFi integration on the XRP ledger. When corporations start using RLUSD for their international operations, they'll need XRP for transaction fees, liquidity provision, and yield generation. The EVM sidechain is connecting XRP to over 80 different blockchains, creating interoperability opportunities that expand the utility of XRP far beyond just the XRP ledger. This means XRP can tap into DeFi opportunities across multiple ecosystems while maintaining its role as the native asset of the most efficient payment rail in existence. What really frustrates me is how people continue to underestimate the significance of these developments. They're so focused on price charts and technical analysis that they're missing the fundamental transformation happening in the utility landscape. This isn't about another speculative bubble. This is about XRP becoming essential infrastructure for the global financial system. The derivatives market alone is worth over $1 quadrillion globally. 1 quadrillion. When institutional-grade derivatives trading comes to the XRP ledger, even capturing a tiny fraction of that market would create demand for XRP that's orders of magnitude larger than anything we've seen before. Institutional risk management is another area where XRP is going to shine. Traditional financial institutions need sophisticated tools for managing counterparty risk, liquidity risk, and operational risk. The XRP ledger provides all of these tools in a transparent, efficient, and cost-effective manner that traditional systems simply can't match. The FX swap market I mentioned earlier processes $7.5 trillion daily. If even 1% of that volume migrates to XRP-based solutions, we're talking about $75 billion in daily transaction volume. The utility demand from that alone would be astronomical. Here's what's going to happen when all these pieces come together. First, you'll see gradual institutional adoption as more companies add XRP to their treasuries and start using XRP-based payment solutions. Then, the ETFs will get approved, triggering massive institutional buying pressure. Meanwhile, DeFi on XRP ledger will continue growing exponentially, locking up enormous amounts of XRP in various protocols. As tokenization accelerates, more and more real-world assets will use XRP as their settlement layer. Corporate treasury management will drive consistent demand as companies realize the benefits of holding XRP. Cross-border payments will scale massively as traditional systems become obsolete. At some point, all of these demand forces will converge and create a supply shock that catches everyone off guard. The available supply of XRP on exchanges will shrink dramatically while institutional demand explodes. Price discovery will break down as buyers compete for scarce supply. When that happens, we're going to see XRP reach price levels that seem impossible today. $50 won't be a meme, it'll be a conservative estimate. $100 will be within reach. And honestly, given the size of the markets XRP is targeting, even higher prices aren't out of the question. The key is understanding that this isn't about speculation or hype. This is about utility-driven demand from the largest financial markets in the world. When you're dealing with quadrillions of dollars in market opportunities, even small adoption percentages translate to enormous demand for the underlying infrastructure. Most people in crypto are still thinking like traders instead of investors. They're focused on daily price movements instead of multi-year adoption cycles. They're worried about short-term volatility instead of long-term utility growth. This short-sighted thinking is going to cost them the opportunity of a lifetime. The smart money is already positioning for this shift. The companies announcing XRP treasuries aren't speculating. They're making strategic investments based on fundamental analysis of where the market is heading. The institutions building on XRP Ledger aren't chasing pumps. They're creating the infrastructure for the next generation of financial services. What excites me most about this opportunity is that we're still early. Most retail investors haven't figured out what's happening yet. Most institutional investors are still focused on Bitcoin and Ethereum. Most traditional finance professionals don't understand the implications of utility-driven crypto adoption. This gives those of us who do understand the opportunity a massive advantage. We can position ourselves before the crowd realizes what's happening. We can accumulate XRP while it's still undervalued relative to its long-term utility potential. We can benefit from the supply shock instead of being caught off guard by it. But here's my warning to everyone listening. Don't get greedy and hold everything waiting for maximum theoretical gains. Take profits along the way. Reinvest those profits. Diversify your holdings. But always keep a significant position in XRP, because when utility becomes the primary value driver in crypto, XRP is going to be one of the biggest winners. The people laughing at XRP today are going to be silent tomorrow. The market cap arguments are going to become irrelevant. The utility skeptics are going to be proven wrong. And those of us who recognize this opportunity early are going to be rewarded beyond our wildest expectations. This isn't just about making money, though the financial rewards are going to be extraordinary. This is about being part of a fundamental transformation in how value moves around the world. We're witnessing the birth of a new financial system, and XRP is going to be at the center of it. The supply shock is coming. The institutional adoption is accelerating. The utility demand is building. The regulatory environment is improving. The technology is ready. All the pieces are in place for the most significant wealth creation event in crypto history. The only question left is whether you're going to position yourself to benefit from it, or whether you're going to sit on the sidelines watching others become generationally wealthy while you wonder what could have been. The choice is yours, but the window of opportunity won't stay open forever. The smart money is already moving. The institutions are already positioning. The infrastructure is already being built. $100 XRP isn't a dream. It's an inevitable outcome of the utility-driven demand that's building right now. The supply shock is coming, and when it hits, it's going to change everything. Don't say I didn't warn you.